presentation. The Triangle Bikeway. So this item comes up frequently whenever we're talking about West Raleigh. We are very fortunate today to have our partners from the Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, or CAMPO, here with us today to present. Kara Russell is the senior planner, and she's going to be able to provide an update. Two key points that I'd like to emphasize without stealing too much of her thunder. The Triangle Bikeway is not just, say, a recreational amenity, as some trail networks would be considered. It is going to be considered a transportation piece of infrastructure. So I think you'll hear that in the presentation, and I think that'll come across very well. Also, the connection into the Raleigh system. And again, I think Raleigh should be very proud of this. That investment that we've done for decades now, that means that we'll have a connection from RTP and beyond all the way across the city and into even sections of Knightdale and Clayton. So again, it's a lot to be proud of and excited about. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Kara Russell to join us.
All right. Thank you, Bradley. Are you all able to hear me okay? I know my voice doesn't project so well. All right. Well, good afternoon, Council. Thank you so much for having me here today. Also in the audience, we have Chris Lucasina, our Executive Director at CAMPO, as well. So I'm going to just give you a quick update on a little bit of the history of the project, just in case you hadn't heard of it or kind of want a refresher on the context of where the project came from and where it's been, as well as go over the approach today, how we've landed where we are, and give you a little bit of a progress update about the activities that are going to be occurring this next month and beyond, highlight what's coming. So what is the Triangle Bikeway in a nutshell? It is that multi-use path that is projected to connect Chapel Hill all the way to Raleigh. So this project in concept has been around for about 2 decades and been in various stages of planning. The most recent of those was the Triangle Bikeway Feasibility and Implementation Study. And this was an effort that was taken on jointly by Triangle West TPO, our sister MPO, and CAMPO, the Capital Area MPO, that looked at finding a good preferred alternative to get us this connection from Chapel Hill to Raleigh. So up on the screen, you'll see some of the alignments that were considered at that time, but where the preferred alignment landed at final adoption was primarily along the I-40 and NC-54 corridor. And so this plan was adopted by both TWTPO and CAMPO in 2022 by their executive boards. And it is an incredible body of work. If you have not flipped through it or read through it, there is some great information in there, all about some of the engagement that occurred, as well as what's up on the screen, the segmentation of the project, thinking about how to start to implement this together as a region. So all of that information is now located on trianglebikeway.com. You can consider that the hub if you're curious about both sides of the corridor and how that's progressed, but also a good focal point to look back on the history of where the project has been. So with that in mind, it also has a lot of the guidance for the design across the region, right? So this facility hopes would be that it would be consistent from Chapel Hill to here. And so there are some typicals that are detailed in the plan that are our backbone now as we step forward into the design phase. All right, so I will now start to talk a little bit about where we are today. So as I've mentioned, the last step of the planning phase occurred in 2022. And so we are now jumping into what's happening now of how we take this first bite out of the project to try to figure out how to start moving it forward. So the design phase for the project that's moving forward is from Research Triangle Park all the way to the bridge near the Art Museum in West Raleigh. And so you'll notice up on the screen that is the final preferred alignment from the triangle study as the base of where we've started. And the reason that we are splitting it here is that it is a good midpoint when we think about connections, right? The connection from Chapel Hill to RTP is really exciting, just as much as RTP to West Raleigh is really exciting. These two sections could be standalone in terms of independent utility. And so we knew it was a first safe step to try to start breaking it down into implementable pieces. So the design is actually funded by a partnership between Wake County and Research Triangle Foundation. And how Campo is involved, we've been asked to manage the preliminary design phase for the project, as well as a strong partnership with NCDOT. And as well as the strong jurisdictional coordination amongst the region. This is, even in this section, has a number of municipalities. We still actually go over the county border and dip into Durham. So there is a lot of coordination to still be had regionally together. So the idea is that there would still be a lot of regional collaboration as we start to move the project forward into design. I am going to zoom out a little bit in terms of talking about the benefits of the project for the region and thinking about a more granular scale of how this is connecting across the board. So up on the screen, you'll see our 2055 draft MTP. This is a composite of bike and pedestrian infrastructure across the region, which it might be a little hard to see on the screen, but those solid green and purple lines, that's what's out there and existing, and then there's dotted lines is all that's planned for. And so I'm going to highlight a few because I know it's a little hard to see. When we're starting to think about the bike and pedestrian regional network and connectivity, it really is quite incredible. So you'll see the trails that we all know and love that connect us north and south, as well as our assimilation of mileage east and west. And so obviously there's still more in between those main corridors, but where this project sits in relation to that is right here. So when you start to imagine how the provision for mode choice throughout the region comes about, you could imagine maybe a commute from Clayton to Chapel Hill becomes possible, or a weekend leisurely trip from, say, Knightdale to downtown Durham becomes a little more attainable, and everything in between, right? There's more connections than just those Stowe-Shopper distances across the region. All right. I'm also going to highlight, so again, all of those destinations that we know and love and would like to connect on the eastern portion. So I could actually go ahead and make a similar slide for the western portion. There's a lot of exciting things to connect to on the other end. But because of today's focus on the eastern side, just wanted to highlight, we know there's a lot of transit investments coming to the region. We know that we have been blessed with a fantastic greenway system in our municipalities, and it is continuing to build out and grow. And we also know we have these major regional destinations such as state parks, local parks, major shopping centers, employment centers that this would connect to across the way. And so in terms of the Triangle Bikeway East design project, our goal is to just move the preliminary design of this eastern portion from RTP to Raleigh forward and position the project for future construction funding opportunities, and continue to advance figuring out how we may best implement the project together. All right, so now I get to the exciting part, what's been going on lately in the past year. So site visits occurred in fall of 2024. So even since the adoption in 2022, there has been a lot of activity occurring along the corridor, and we took a look at these three key areas in the RTP area, the Lake Crabtree area, and the Wade Avenue area here in Raleigh. And so we looked at a bunch of the opportunities that were occurring and looked back to the feasibility plan. The consultant team that is working on this looked at a feasibility validation to make sure that we were comfortable moving forward with a final alignment into 30% design. And so up on the screen, you'll notice that there's a couple of additional lines. That's because we want to be really careful about what we're bringing forward and make sure we've got it right. We are also starting to do a bunch of the environmental documentation if federal funds should be applied to the construction of the project. This is a good step. It's also a really good step to understand what's out there on the ground today. So we're going ahead and starting some of that documentation work, as well as we're starting the project coordination for, as I've said, a lot of the development happening in the area. And so our schedule moving forward, we are, again, taking a careful look at these key areas on the corridor. And so we'll be coming out and doing presentations just like these to get everybody up to speed and let everybody know that we'll be asking for input in the next month about these key areas. So we did ask about the locations of where people are coming to and from in the implementation study, but again, we're trying to nail down preferences in these specific areas. And so you'll start to see flyers and information come out. Our survey will go live next week, January 21st, and it will run all the way through February 25th. And then alongside that, just in case there's questions along the way, we are going out to the community at the 3 areas, so in RTP, Morrisville, and then here in Raleigh at Laurel Hills Community Center. So we've provided today some of those handouts and materials if you've got some questions to be able to talk through. We also have the little project cards for information to be able to give out quickly. That QR code there actually will take you directly to the site. We are hosting, again, our Eastern section on publicinput.com/trybikeeast. So that'll take you directly there, and once the survey is live, it'll take you directly to that survey as a quick way to ask if people are interested in taking it. So that, I think, wraps up the presentation that I have, but I'll open to any questions you might have and see if I can answer them.
Great, thank you. I'll start with Councilor Lambert-Melton and then Silver.
Well, this is exciting work. It's good for public health, obviously, for connectivity, and it's good environmental policy, too. I have a question. It may actually be for our transportation director because it's a policy question. But as we're working to connect these different regions and municipalities, are we doing any work to try to align our policies, too? I mean, I know Raleigh has very specific policies on what types of personal mobility devices are allowed in our greenway systems. And I don't know what Morrisville does or what other municipalities do, but I think it would be helpful to have consistent policies along the Triangle Bikeway so that if you're starting a trip in Morrisville, when you get to Raleigh, you're not getting in trouble for riding a different type of device. I know in Raleigh, we don't allow like motorized scooters, anything that doesn't have a pedal, which I personally would still like to look at that policy again. And we've got e-bikes now that are pedalless that we're running into some issues with on our greenway. So I just want to make sure we are trying to align our policies too, so it's consistent to the user experience.
Yeah, Paul Calm, Transportation. So great question. So I would definitely say probably early on in the stages of that, but that would definitely be something we would want to do because, again, if I'm a user in Raleigh and I traverse over to Durham or through Chapel Hill, we would definitely want those mobilities to align. So I definitely think as we continue these conversations with Campo and our sister partners there, we would definitely want to do that. So, but I would say we're probably early on in that conversation right now.
Okay. Well, I won't
Definitely
be here,
take that
but I will
feedback.
show up to public comment if needed to make sure this happens.
Sure.
So, and I'll dress like a leprechaun. So just
That's
letting you know.
good question.
Gareth, thank you for the presentation. Just so everybody watching understands, when you say bikeway, it's not exclusively for cyclists. It does allow for runners and pedestrians, and I'm assuming the width will ensure it can accommodate all users. Is that correct?
That is correct. The extent for the typicals is 16 feet. So 10 foot would be for the bike portion, and then the 6 foot for the pedestrian portion as well.
All right. So I don't know if you got any pushback for saying bikeway versus something else. So that's why I was asking a question, then I have a second question.
Yes,
Okay.
we've heard a little bit of that, and appreciate the comment as well. This is early stages in preliminary design, but as we move the project forward and think about things like maintenance, responsibilities, and how that's going to work, we would definitely need to discuss further as a region, naming and things of that nature.
My second question, I know it's still early in design. It seems like it's running in parallel to the interstate. At this point, have you looked at what that separation is going to be between the interstate and the bikeway? Is it adjacent? Is there going to be a buffer in between? Is it a vegetative buffer, a concrete? So I know it's still early, but you chose an alignment, which meant you did some investigation to find out what is possible. So can you clarify exactly what will that relationship be to the bikeway and the interstate?
Sure. And I may go back and lean on an image to make sure it's best to visualize. So
Okay.
up there on the screen, there will be a little bit of a variable width. I mean, depending on where it is, we want to try to, as much as possible, stay within the right-of-way and away from the interstate. And there will be some moving of the CA fence, so there will be a separation from the facility and the interstate. So that width could be variable, but it was typically 50 feet or greater.
50 feet or greater from the interstate.
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Questions? Yes.
Yeah, definitely great work project as we move forward and everything. My question is around cost. I know the Wake County Transit Plan is covering parts of this for what's in Wake County, I'm assuming, because it says Wake County and it says the research. So the Research Triangle Foundation are the two funding partners. Is that correct?
So the funding partners is actually Wake County funds, so not
Okay.
associated with the Wake Transit Plan. And
Okay.
so, at least for the design portion, it was a Wake County and a Research Triangle Foundation partnership.
Okay, cool. Thank you, because that's good clarity, because I know people will have those questions. My other question is, what is the estimated cost?
Sure. So in terms of cost estimates, the implementation study in 2022 did break down each segment estimate cost. So if I'm to go back to this slide here. And so if we were to combine those segments to have a ballpark, it would be about 89 million, which is, I don't want to have any sticker shock today, but the intent, it could be that we break it up into smaller chunks. And I would also say that the cost estimates from the study are already out of date. And so as a part of advancing the design, we're sharpening the pencils on that and making sure we're looking at the final alignment to get a good estimate to try to move forward.
Definitely thank you, and I appreciate the county and leading the efforts on this good health initiative.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. Really excited about what's going to come here. Curious, I think, back to Councilmember Lambert-Melton's comment about types of, bicycles allowed and things like that. What about the speed? Is there a speed limit that you already have in mind?
Not off the top of my head. I think as we advance the project into final design and start to come to the discussions about maintenance and long-term policy for the corridor, alongside those branding discussions, we'd need to talk as a region to make sure that we're setting that consistently across the board and that it would work in accordance with other connections to the bikeway, so it wouldn't be so much of a stop and go once you get on or off it. But it is intended to be a commuter type corridor. So I don't have a idea in mind, but that is something that we would continue to explore together as a region.
Yeah, I do see some user conflicts on our greenway trails. I believe generally the speed limit is 10 miles an hour, but I know some folks go double that, and it can be dangerous. And I've known of some incidents recently of people being hit. And so I understand this commuter path would need to have some additional speed. 10 is not probably enough. But as long as there's separation between the other users, like runners or walkers, hopefully it would be good for everyone.
Okay. Any other? Yes, Councilor Patton.
Hi. Thanks for this. This is obviously a generational investment. You spoke to the funding source for the design. Once design is completed, what will be the funding source for construction?
Right, that is a great question, and it will also be the heart of the discussion moving forward as a region. So there are a number of options that could be had. I'll start to bring out a couple examples because we don't have one set yet. That is something we hope to discuss further as a region together. So we are taking a look at a bunch of different sources in terms of federal funding grants that may be out there or coming. That could be one potential option. Another option could be the incorporation into other existing projects in the corridor, say along I-40 with NCDOT STIP projects. Another example could be using opportunities that are existing out there, again, to try to break up the corridor so it's a little less of a big amount to put up front and try to work it that way. There could be public-private partnership opportunities. Some other examples throughout the country lean on those nonprofit partners if there was one to be interested. So there's a variety of examples we could work out and make sure that we're ready for whatever may come. But we are working with senior and technical staff across the region to start to try to tease out some of those options, make sure we have some that work logistically across our lines to make sure we're coming at this all together. And so we hope to try to bring, when those are more pared down, bring those forward into discussion with local elected staff. So there's a couple options there.
Got it. And building on that, so it sounds like there could be many ways we come at getting the money to build it. Is the thought that CAMPA will be the lead agency on construction since it crosses jurisdictional lines?
So I think that it probably wouldn't be best if Campo constructed it. We are not a constructing agency, but we are a partner along the way as we move it forward. So again, just as there are options for funding, there are options for maintenance, and there's also options for construction sponsors. So again, if it's incorporated into a DOT project, DOT, might be able to construct. If it's incorporated into a local partner project, local partner could be a sponsor. It could be, again, looking at a nonprofit or some type of authority agency, maybe regionally, that could come together to help manage that construction. So again, there's a whole host of options that could be. So we don't have one particular route identified at this time, but we're trying to refine that to make sure it logistically works and we could accomplish this together.
Councilor Jones.
Thank you so much. I'll echo, this is a great plan. I'm excited about it. And we've talked about the design, and Councilor Patton brought up construction. And then I want to go further than that. I know if the same answers are we don't know, that's fine. You can just say ditto. But is the goal, once it's built, that each municipality will now absorb that? Or are we going to absorb the maintenance and the ongoing into our own system? Or is this something that will stay with is it Campo? How does this work once it's built, once it is constructed, however that gets done? How do we as the city partner with this?
Right. So it could be, again, any number of options. We don't know at this time, but we're working through those options to show. So it could be that you split it at the line. It could be maybe you do it by county. It could be, again, a nonprofit, public-private partnership. It could be an MSA district. But we're trying to, have those options outlined in a little more detail of how the specifics of that would work logistically in order to bring that forward, to make sure everyone's comfortable with that. So I would say, for Raleigh, just continue to think about these questions. They're very good questions. We really do want to try to start thinking about them all together and what works for you all as well.
So a follow-up to that, as we have these, who are we having? I know the mayor serves on Campo. Is that something that we will bring back at a future work session? Like, how do we feel kind of like, oh, I'm excited, and then I got no answers for the public? So how do I find those answers? What does that communications look like? Because I can't keep saying to the public, I don't know. I got to be able to give them something. So when do you have anticipated dates of when those conversations will happen, or how that looks coming back to us?
I think they can happen as early as we get the final selection for the routing finalized. So we can start having that conversation with senior staff, make sure some of the options make sense for everyone, and then bring that forward through maybe some listening sessions, some stakeholder sessions with local elected officials and senior staff if you've got questions there. So that'll be coming, I think, I would say by summer into fall. So we're slated for completion of the alignment. I'm so sorry to have to go through. I think it's this summer, but I don't want to misspeak. Yes, we should be arriving at one final alignment to carry to 30% design this summer, so shortly thereafter that. So we've got a little bit more of the design under our belt and a little more sharpened pencils for you.
Thank you.
Councilor Sullivan.
I know you're going out now for more public information and feedback on preliminary design. So just the public's aware, how is public safety approached? We have a number of greenways. There's an approach of blue light. Falls of Neuse, for example, the Neuse River Trail, I think, has a restroom at 5401 and then not again till 7-8 miles later at Anderson Point. So as the public sees these bikeways or trails evolve, is that something that is open to consideration, quote unquote, the amenities, restrooms, in terms of whether it's blue light or just public safety considerations, because these are very long stretches that you're proposing between Chapel Hill ultimately and where it will continue through Raleigh and beyond. So just so that the public understands when public information comes in, they have those concerns, how do they communicate that to Campo or the design team?
Right. I would say during this phase, obviously, we're taking all sorts of comments. We're focused on making sure we, select the right alternative to carry forward. So any information about the area or problem areas is helpful for us to know and consider to make sure we're designing well. In terms of safety and lighting, the implementation study did consider some lighting options. We know it'll be a commuter corridor. Again, it's already starting to get a little dark outside, and we know lighting will definitely be a part of the design. But once we get forward into final design, we can start to have some of those conversations a little bit more about what that looks like. So preliminarily, for a lot of the documentation that we're doing now, we asked for some feedback from police and EMS to try to understand that early on. And then we'll hopefully come together as we get into final design and work through that again for consistency and to make sure that we're, thinking about those things. I think, did I get all that? Or?
You did. I guess the point is that there are some trails that, like Tobacco Trail, there are homes, there's crossroads where there are convenience stores, there are other greenways that are pretty isolated, and I'm assuming with this alignment, it will be pretty isolated. There'll be no development nearby, which is why, to give the user some comfort, that there will be some consideration to public safety. But like I said, we have a large system in this region. Some are near commercial and residential. There are others that are just isolated because of its location near a river or a creek. So that's why I was saying, going along 40, I'm assuming it'll relatively be isolated, so just to give people some comfort as they go through segments where there's just no civilization nearby.
Right.
Okay. Lots of good yes. Councilor Patton.
Hi, one more from me. I realize your sort of next milestone is this summer 26, and you're gathering feedback on design at this time. The question we always get with things like this is sort of like, when will I be able to bike on it? Like, the public really wants to know, when is the project going to be completed? I understand the funding sources are not lined up, but in a loose ballpark, are we talking 2035, 2050? Do you have a thought of when people will be riding on this bikeway?
Oh, that is a great question. So I will say, I'll point back to the implementation and feasibility study. Those cost estimates, there was an assumption that it would be a 2030 construction year. And so, again, all of those stars have to align. But, you know, as we come to some of these answers and try to align those, we'll have a better idea to move that forward.
Okay, yes, one
I'm
more
sorry,
question.
one last question. Your conversation today was about phase 1, and that's from Raleigh to RTP. Where is the planning of phase 2?
Planning a phase 2.
Yeah,
so
when is, because right now this goes out to looking at final design by 2027 for phase 1.
Right.
So where will phase 2, when will it start, and when will that, because I think that goes on to the question that Councilor Patton had. We're talking about the completion of this part, but I'm looking at totality of completing the entire from Raleigh to Chapel Hill. What's that looking like, at least from a planning standpoint? I'm not even going to talk about construction. Let's just go with planning for phase 2.
With planning, so I know I'm coming out with a lot of we're not sure yet. Again, that study did look at that construction year of 2030 for that as well. So the timeline for RTP to Durham could happen again at any point. So as early as tomorrow, if it was decided upon, they could continue that design, and we would still be able to marry up the projects in the middle, or it could be if they don't start it until after this phase is constructed. We are keeping close coordination all along the way to make sure that we've got consistency. And again, that we've selected these stopping points as that independent utility. So again, those are dependent on local decisions, but it is arranged in such a way that it, you know, if it was decided upon tomorrow, that could work. If it was decided upon after construction, that may also work. But I don't want to speak for the western half.
Okay,
But
I'm
we
sorry.
did-
And you made a statement, you said local decision. Is that a county local decision, or is that the municipality's local decision?
It could be both. It could be
Okay.
all the above.
Okay, thank you.
And we did keep that in mind, even in the naming. You're seeing we keep broadcasting Triangle Bikeway East. It's to try to acknowledge that we're a part of a larger, there is a West that we are keeping in mind and being mindful as we move this side of the project along.
Right. Well, we appreciate the update from both of you, and exciting long-term project. Appreciate your updating us.
Well, thank you all so much for having me here today. I really appreciate all of your questions, and really do look forward to hopefully being able to speak with you more about the project in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay. If there is no further discussion, we are adjourned, recessed. We will reconvene at 7 p.m. tonight for public comment.